Leonie Grant. Leonie, I'm sure when you hear stories like that, and I know that you and your family have been involved with the Seroptimists, and you're very much community minded as well. But something like Relay for Life, we are so lucky to have it here, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely, sure. In the pharmacy, we see those patients who are going through chemo, who have come out the other side, who are just being, I suppose, introduced to the whole journey. So it's very evident in the pharmacy what a massive journey it is, and the roller coaster that someone who is diagnosed with cancer has to undergo. And it's not just that person themselves, it's the whole family. I had a lovely lady just ring me during the week, and she was officially told she was in remission. So she found it so important to share it with the pharmacy, because we've been with her along the way on her medication journey and that during her cancer.
Okay, this is a time to support, a time to remember, and a time to embrace the wonderful Relay for Life. But now your talking point today is thrush. What exactly is it, and how does it differ between men and women?
Yeah, thrush is a funny one, Alan, because I think people often don't recognise it so quickly. They kind of see this coating on their tongue and they're not 100% sure what's going on. So thrush, I suppose, is a fungal infection caused by a yeast called Candida. We all have it on our skin, on our esophagus and different areas in the body. When we're well and healthy, it doesn't cause any problem at all. It lives on us happily. But it's when our immune system takes a dip, either through steroid use, through antibiotic use, through going through chemotherapies, or just being really stressed out, that this fungal infection takes hold. So it kind of grows a little bit extra to cause symptoms.
Right.
We can get it down below, so vaginally, and get it on their groin, and then but it can also grow in the mouth.
And what causes it?
It's the yeast.
Yeast is
it's a yeast, yeah.
Okay.
This Candida, pretty much we get it when we come out, when we're born as babies. We can get it coming out during labour. It can also be passed on during breastfeeding. Mum can maybe have a bit of the yeast on her nipples, and then it's passed on to the baby. So there's a high risk, a very, very high risk of babies, newborns getting it, and up to 1 year if they're feeding all the time. So we'd have to be, like in the pharmacy all the time, we would see this white coating on a little baby's tongue.
Yeah.
It can make the baby a bit fussy while feeding. It is probably a little bit more prominent with breastfeeding because it can come from the nipple. So in that instance, we would treat the baby and we would treat mum. So you'd have to try and kill the fungus on the nipple and also in the baby's
How do you
mouth.
differentiate and separate it from other similar ailments? So how do you identify it as being thrush?
Yeah, so there's quite distinctive white patches usually on the tongue. They can, if you look at the tongue, it can be kind of like a furry coating, or like some people refer to as a cottage cream kind of coating, whereas I actually mostly see it as a furry kind of white patchy coating. You can have like good healthy gaps on the tongue that look lovely, and then these patchy kind of white coating that you can kind of scrape off, and sometimes when you scrape it off it can leave the tongue underneath quite red and sometimes can be bleeding. I can also go to the cracks of the mouth, so you can have these fungal infections on the cracks of the mouth that the crack of the mouth never clear up, so people can use a lot of Vaseline and this, that and the other, but it might be that it's fungally infected. So we'd always treat, if I see those cracks in the mouth, I'd always treat it with a fungal treatment first, with a bit of Vaseline, and then if that doesn't clear up, there might be a little bacteria there, but initially certainly a fungal infection at the cracks of the mouth.
And the other recommended treatments are what then?
So there's a few ways you can go about it, I suppose. The first protocol is to treat it topically. That means on top of it, not with a tablet. So you can get a drug that you hold it in your mouth. It's called mycostatin. Statin is the drug in it. It's a little liquid. You put the liquid into the mouth, swish it around, hold it in your mouth as long as possible, and then swallow it. And the trick with that is you don't eat or drink straight away after that liquid's in the mouth, because you want the contact of the drug with the tongue and the inside of the mouth. If you wear dentures, that you have to be careful of that too, that they're being cleaned properly. And you use that. It's a really short-acting drug, so you have to use it 4 times a day. So a lot of people come in after using this for a couple of weeks and they say, oh, it's rubbish, the treatment failed, when actually they just haven't used it properly, or they've taken the treatment, taken the medicine in their mouth, and then next thing they have a cup of tea. So they're effectively washing the drug away, and because it's only a tiny amount of drug, the amount of contact time with the tongue is really important.
Okay.
So I'd always say, now, are you sure you used it 4 times a day? And they might say, oh, I might have missed a couple of times each day, or, so it's really important to follow the instructions carefully and to keep going with it, because sometimes it can, all fungal infections, whether it's groin, feet, tongue, they are all quite deep-rooted, which means they just don't affect the top layer of skin. They go a bit deeper, so you have to treat it for, I say, 2 to 3 weeks, and with the hope of that someone might actually treat for 2 weeks. I think people get a little bit bored of treatment sometimes. They're really good for the first few days, and then the condition clears up a little bit. And
can you explain the link between thrush and antibiotics? Somebody's just sent another question. If you overuse antibiotics, can it lead to thrush?
Yeah, so antibiotics clear bacteria, and this allows the areas to be a fertile ground for the fungus to overgrow. So bacteria and fungi kind of, they exist together, and they kind of keep each other under control, let's say. So if you clear out the bacteria with an antibiotic, which the antibiotics only kill bacteria, they don't do anything for viruses or fungal infections. If you clear out the bacteria, the fungus will overgrow. So therefore you get your fungal infection. So you'd find a lot of people who are immunosuppressed, who've had loads of antibiotics, who might be on chemotherapies, suddenly they're on long-term antibiotics, their immune system is really low, and the fungus just goes, oh, I can grow here, I have the opportunity. So then our normal immune system that will keep that fungus under control all the time, that is not challenged. The fungus will overtake that area and will start to grow without challenge.
We're on to summary now. Probiotics, have they a part to play as well?
Oh my goodness, yeah. I absolutely adore probiotics, not just for fungal infections, but just for general, good health. Antibiotics will clear out, bacteria. They're not very specific, so they're not silver bullet medication. So they'll clear out a range of bacteria, good and bad. Yeah. So they might clear up your chest infection, but they'll also clear the good bacteria that's living in your gut.
What would you define as a probiotic, as a matter of interest? What would you
probiotic is a product that contains bacteria that is good for our gut.
Right.
And that is cleaned out by antibiotics. Would yogurt be a probiotic? There's bacteria in live yogurts that would add to our bacteria in our gut. So a probiotic is simply a product that contains good living bacteria. And probiotics that we have in the pharmacy, some have to be kept in the fridge, some are kind of frozen in time, and then they reactivate when they get into your gut, depending on the pH of your tummy and your gut. So I find that, and more research is coming out, probiotics are one of the tools to help your immune system fight infection. There's a big link between the health of your gut microbiome, which is just a big garden of bacteria in your gut. That big garden of bacteria that sits in your gut is really important, and it's like fertilising your garden at home. You fertilise it with probiotics or with multiple strains of bacteria, and the healthier and the more strains of bacteria in your gut, the better your immune system is.
Great to talk to you as always.
That's a very quick summary.
I think you've gone through it in detail. Great advice. Before we let you go, misconceptions that are shared with you at the pharmacy that you'd like to waylay at the moment and put out of people's minds. What are some of the misconceptions that are shared? Oh,
I suppose sometimes I think infections, especially fungal infections, that they'll go away without treatment. That's not really the case. It's much better to actually treat them. Athlete's foot at the minute is, it's usually due to moist, hot environments, I tell the teenagers, get your feet out, get into flip-flops, into sliders without the socks on, get a bit of air, make sure you're drying between the toes very well so the fungal infection will clear up. I suppose we're great for advice, and it's not always a drug remedy. It can be, a home remedy like tea tree oils, all these different types of things. But we're a wealth of knowledge, so come into the pharmacy with your ailments.